Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Adelaide, and I am here with Rose Natural Wellness. I am a certified nutrition and wellness consultant, and I specialize in women's nutrition. So I'm really excited to be here. For any of you that are hopping on, please feel free to add your comments into the chat box if you would like me to answer any specific questions. But today we are just going to be diving into a topic that I think is a really big, really important topic, especially as it pertains to women and women's nutrition. And that is why you don't need a diet to eat healthier. So, if you are new to this channel, if you're just now joining us, this is our YouTube live series where we talk about all kinds of different myths, questions around healthy eating and whole food nutrition, and answer your questions live so that you can get some good support from a nutrition specialist to help kind of cut through all of the confusion around different nutrition topics. Because there is a lot of information out there, and again, some is good, some is not so good. So we're here to kind of break through that confusion and provide really good real life, real food information to help you support your health in a sustainable way. So, this is a big topic that I really care a lot about, and I spend a lot of time discussing this with both my class participants and my individual clients. And that is why you don't need a diet to eat healthier. We often see all over the internet, even in magazines, health food stores, newspapers, TV, you name it. We see a lot of information about the next latest, greatest diet. And realistically, I am here to tell you that you do not need a specific diet to eat healthier. One thing that I always point out to all of my class participants and my individual clients is that 95% of diets actually fail. Well, the reason for that is because those diets are not specific to you and your needs. And oftentimes, many diets are very unsustainable, they're very restrictive, and they just don't support your health in a real holistic way. So, this is something that is really a kind of a difficult topic because there are so many different pieces of information out there saying that one diet is good for you, one is not. You should be doing XYZ diet. Realistically, it's all about balance. So, we're kind of going to dive into that today. Some of the biggest things that I have seen recently are a big emphasis on things like the keto diet, the paleo diet, carnivore diet, and even strict veganism. So, we're going to kind of break down what that means and why it may not be sustainable for you. Of course, before we dive into this topic, I do want to kind of give a disclaimer or a preface that you can still follow more of a certain eating pattern if it makes sense for you. So, if you are somebody that deeply feels that you prefer to be vegan for health reasons, ethical or moral reasons, that's understandable. You are absolutely welcome to do that sort of eating pattern. That's totally fine. But the point here is to demonstrate that a certain diet is not a one size fits all for everyone, and there is no such diet that is going to meet every single person's needs. It is very individual. So let's kind of dive right into that. First, I want to start with the keto diet. The keto diet is a really unique sort of diet because we are seeing so much more popularity about this diet coming about recently. And so, the keto diet, for those of you that may be unfamiliar, the keto diet places a really strong emphasis on high fat and high protein in the diet, very, very, very low carb. The purpose of this ketogenic diet is to shift your body into what's called ketosis. And what ketosis is it is transitioning your body, and specifically your brain, to run off of fats and not off of carbohydrates. So, if you attended our live last week, we talked a little bit about the importance of carbohydrates and the fact that carbohydrates are actually the primary source of fuel for your brain, which is why I always say that it is absolutely essential to have healthy carbohydrates in your diet. And as you'll start to see, this is one of the main reasons why I'm not a huge proponent of the ketogenic diet. So, what basically the ketogenic diet does is you're eating high fats, high protein, and you're shifting your brain from using glucose, which comes from carbohydrates, as its primary fuel, and you're switching to ketosis. So your body starts to run off of fat, which the kind of idea behind it is that maybe if you are running off of fat in your brain, that you will actually be able to kind of burn more fat, have more awareness and alertness as a result. But realistically, our bodies are not designed to be in ketosis in a sustainable way, which is why many people who participate in the ketogenic style diet often find that they experience something called keto flu. And this typically happens about a week into starting a ketogenic diet. People tend to experience flu like symptoms like chills, fever, muscle aches, fatigue, and this is because your body is not running off of its normal fuel source and it is having a really hard transition, and it's basically going into its emergency stores. Okay, so what I often explain to my clients is, if you think of your body like a sports car, so you're driving a Ferrari. If you are driving a Ferrari down the street, you are typically going to be using kind of a premium gas in your car. So that's what we can kind of consider as our equivalent to the glucose that comes from carbohydrates. You're using your premium gas, you're driving down the street, things are good. Well, let's say you start to run out of fuel and you are not anywhere near a gas station. The closest gas station is miles and miles away. You need gas right now. The car is stalling. We're about to kind of stop and have no gas left. So, what happens in the body essentially is that's that point where your body is shifting into ketosis and using fat as fuel instead of glucose. So, what happens there, we can equate that to, let's say, in your trunk or in your passenger seat, you have just a can of regular old gasoline, just the basic stuff. And you're going to be using that as your fuel to fuel your Ferrari so you can get over to the gas station, right? So that's kind of the equivalent here is your body going into ketosis as a fuel source is kind of like using that old regular can of gasoline that you have as an emergency in your car. Our bodies are not designed to be in ketosis for a extended period of time. It is not sustainable for most people, which is why many people who are using a ketogenic diet often experience those really unpleasant symptoms and have that keto flu. So, keto diet is something that's super interesting. So, I want to kind of dive a little bit more into where the keto diet came from so we can have a better understanding of why people are using this and why it may not be a good idea for our health. So, the ketogenic diet, the origin of the ketogenic diet was that it was actually created to help treat epilepsy. So, people that have epileptic seizures, they had found that by switching to a ketogenic diet where the brain is running off of fat primarily instead of glucose, they actually found that this helped to manage the symptoms of seizures in certain epileptic patients. So that is the origin of the ketogenic diet. And that's where If you are somebody that maybe suffers from epilepsy and epileptic seizures, that could be a great conversation to have with your doctor or your dietitian, because it actually may have a really positive impact in managing those symptoms, since that's what the ketogenic diet was specifically designed for. But for the rest of us, on a general baseline, as a typical rule, the ketogenic diet really is not very sustainable and it puts a lot of pressure on our bodies. And actually, what can happen is as we have ketones develop and be in our bodies, this can actually have really negative effects on other bodily systems, such as our liver and our kidneys. So we can be at risk for other issues by utilizing a ketogenic diet. So I would just be really, really, really careful of that, because we are really aiming to fuel our body in a healthy, balanced, and holistic way. So that's where carbohydrates are actually really important, and they are our friends. That is the primary source of fuel for the brain, and that's how our bodies are designed to process food. So I would really strongly advocate to please keep carbohydrates in your diet. Always aim to have healthy carbohydrate options: fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes. These are going to be the best options for our healthy carbohydrates. They will keep your brain fueling and functioning well and keep you feeling good and avoid that keto flu. That is the best recommendation on that front. So, next one would be our paleo diet. So, there's actually a lot of really cool benefits of the paleo diet, some things that are good. Just for some background on the paleo diet stands for Paleolithic diet. So it is describing the type of eating pattern that our ancestors may have used, hundreds, even thousands of years ago, where there is no processed foods of any kind, certainly no ultra processed foods, and it's only things that essentially our ancestors could hunt or gather for. So these would be things like nuts and seeds, berries, meat, veggies. Those are going to be the cornerstones of a Paleolithic diet. Now, some cool benefits of that is it is emphasizing healthy whole foods, which is great. Fresh meat that is healthy and lean, fresh fruits and veggies, nuts and seeds. These are all great powerhouse foods. So there's some good positive benefits to the paleo diet. However, there's a lot of things that potentially could be missing. So, if we are talking about a true paleo diet, that doesn't really typically include any whole grains, because whole grains are technically a processed food. It does require some processing in order to get the wheat or the grain from the pasture all the way to your plate. Even though it may be minimally processed, there is some processing that still occurs as a result of that. And the paleo diet does not allow for any sorts of processed foods whatsoever. So we may be really missing out on a key piece of our nutrition, those healthy whole grains. Another piece here too is some people do really well with meat or with milk and dairy products, and those can have a lot of really great health benefits. So a paleo diet does not allow that as a part of that diet. And we may be missing out on some key calcium, some protein, some healthy fat sources. So might not be necessarily the best fit. The paleo diet does tend to be quite restrictive. And so that's where most people may have some challenges with making sure that they have balance and that they're really embracing that 80-20 rule, because that paleo diet is pretty restrictive. But overall, it does have some good benefits there. If you're somebody that really thrives by having a really strict, regimented sort of eating plan, that could be an option for you. So something to consider. But my philosophy and how I really approach eating with my clients and my class participants is really from more of a place of balance. So for that reason, paleo diet is not really my preferred cup of tea. Now, similarly, we have the carnivore diet. The carnivore diet has been getting a lot of attention recently because there have been certain people who have really severe autoimmune conditions who have seen great benefits in eating a strict carnivore diet. Now, similar to the ketogenic diet, I would say these kind of fall into a similar category where it may be helpful for some people in some circumstances, but on the whole, the carnivore diet is extremely restrictive. And what happens with that carnivore diet is the reason it is typically very effective for some people at managing some of these more severe autoimmune conditions is because it takes out all of these other components of the diet that are possibly pro inflammatory. So, what I mean by that is, again, similar to paleo, similar to keto, we're eliminating a lot of our processed and ultra processed foods, which often have a lot of preservatives, sugar, a lot of additives and fillers that are really just kind of chemicals. That our bodies can't really process very effectively. So, by taking those out, we can really eliminate a lot of the issues that we might be experiencing from a standard American diet. However, the drawback of the carnivore diet is that we're missing some nutrients. The kind of good thing, I suppose, about carnivore is that meat is a complete protein. It's typically very high in a broad spectrum of essential vitamins and essential minerals, so that's good. However, we are missing our fruits and vegetables, which have phytonutrients. These are little itty bitty components of the foods that do not provide any calories. They are not technically in the category of essential minerals, nor are they in the category of essential vitamins. They are something completely unique. And these phytonutrients each have different benefits. Some of them help to reduce inflammation. Some of them help to improve eyesight. Some of them help to increase energy levels. There's a lot of different functions that these phytonutrients have, and we can only really get those from fresh whole plant foods, so our fruits and veggies. These come in a variety of colors, which is why I always tell people to prioritize eating the rainbow, because that's going to give you a broad spectrum of these different phytonutrients. In a carnivore diet, we are not having any of those phytonutrients from fruits and vegetables because we're not eating any fruits and vegetables. The other piece there, if you're not eating any fruits and vegetables, you are also not consuming enough dietary fiber. This is a big, big problem because dietary fiber is absolutely essential for healthy digestion and for maintaining a positive ratio in our gut microbiome. So, our gut microbiome is filled with bacteria, and some of that bacteria is good and some of that is bad. When we eat a lot of ultra processed foods, a lot of sugar, a lot of high saturated fat, the bacteria in our gut is altered and our gut microbiome starts to change. So that's where people can often experience things like leaky gut. Well, that's where we have the intestinal lining, and the intestinal lining is realistically supposed to be really, really tight. So only those essential nutrients, things that we're trying to absorb, can get through. What happens is over time, as the gut microbiome starts to change and we start to have more of a higher ratio of bad, negative bacteria in there, the intestinal lining starts to weaken and open up. And then we start to have these big gaps in our intestinal lining. This is a problem because those larger particles that may be things like toxins and just less healthy things that we don't really want to reabsorb into our body, now that we have these leaks, these holes, those particles can just go right through and be reabsorbed into our bodies. That is really, really bad news. So we want to be aware of that. And this is one thing that often actually draws people to the carnivore diet, because there are many people who experience symptoms of leaky gut, and they utilize the carnivore diet to actually help heal that. Again, for some people, this actually may work quite well. but for many people, it is not sustainable. The reason why it does tend to work well at the beginning is again because we are taking out and eliminating a lot of the sugars, a lot of the processed and ultra processed foods. Those are no longer a part of the diet. So, with those pieces eliminated, your gut can start to heal. Some people find that they may start to heal from these really severe autoimmune conditions. However, we reach a point where we do need to have those other nutrients. We do need to have fiber, and this is all a part of a healthy, well balanced diet. So, even though it may start off being of a positive benefit for someone, typically what we find is later down the line, the same people who were experiencing benefits with a carnivore diet are now struggling because they're missing those nutrients and they have to start to reintroduce those later on. So that is my kind of caveat to the carnivore diet. Yes, it can help in some circumstances for some people, but we really need to be careful about how we're utilizing that and certainly really prepare for and make sure that we are incorporating balance into that diet. Now, finally, the other one that I want to talk about, which is a little bit on the opposite spectrum of these three diets that we discussed, is going to be strict veganism. Now, strict veganism, that can be sustainable for some people, but the biggest concern that I have when it comes to being strict vegan is making sure that people are getting enough protein. That's going to be a huge key because most of us, especially as women, are actually not getting enough protein. And with a strict vegan diet, you just have to be very, very cognizant and very careful of making sure that you are getting enough protein. So, you absolutely can get protein from plant sources. However, plant sources are going to be what's called incomplete proteins. Now, this by no means that incomplete proteins are less than or worse. They are still absolutely phenomenal and part of our good, healthy, balanced diet. The only thing that that means is that those plant foods that are incomplete proteins, they just do not have enough of the essential micronutrients, the essential amino acids, especially that insufficient amounts for us to absorb into our bodies and utilize effectively, which is why we need to prioritize complementary proteins to make sure that you are hitting those protein goals. So a example of that could be something like pairing rice with black beans so that we can get more of a broad spectrum of those amino acids. So that's something that as vegans, you just have to be very, very careful of. The other thing that we see in a vegan population is a deficiency in vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is an essential vitamin. It is absolutely essential for our energy levels, for the health of our brains and our nervous system. So it's a really big deal. Unfortunately, you can only get vitamin B12 from animal sources. So this is where it becomes a big problem for people who are vegan. They are at risk for a vitamin B12 deficiency. And if you are somebody who feels very, very strongly for your health, for your morals, for your ethics, that you want to be a strict vegan, you absolutely can go about that in a healthy way. Just really, I encourage you to talk to your doctor or your dietitian or any other health and wellness professional that is taking care of you about B12 because that is going to be an essential nutrient that you are possibly missing out on. So, with that, we've kind of gone over some of the biggest hot button type of diets and what they are, how they work. But essentially, what we prioritize at Rose Natural Wellness is a well rounded, whole foods focused diet. So, this looks like all of the essential macronutrients in proper balance. So you've got your protein, your healthy carbohydrates, your healthy dietary fats. We really treat this from a holistic perspective as needing to have good balance from all of them because they all provide different benefits for our health, and it's essential to have those in balance. So let's talk about some things that kind of work better than just picking a strict diet and trying to stick with that. So I like to break this down into kind of three overarching pieces. We've got habits, we've got mindset, and we've got small incremental changes. So, my best recommendation is to start by focusing on building a habit through those small incremental changes. I typically explain to my clients that a habit can be built from anywhere between 18 days to 254 days. So, this is a super wide range, and every person is different. You may be somebody that can make a habit change and have it stick within 18 days, and that's awesome. Some people may take a little bit longer. It may take all 254 days to build that health habit. Building habits can be very complex and it's very individual. So, what I recommend is always just start small. Pick one thing and stick to that. So, this could be I am going to eat one more serving of fruit every day. Awesome. I love it. That's a perfect goal. So, what are you going to do to achieve that? Okay, maybe it's setting the fruit out on the countertop in a bowl of fruit so that every time you walk by, you see it and you are more likely to pick that up. Maybe it's packing your lunch and putting that extra serving of fruit in your lunchbox so that you can take it to work with you. Maybe it's making sure that your fruits are front and center in the fridge so that you can see them easier, or having a fruit as a dessert to increase that fruit intake during your day. Just pick one small goal and stick to it. And anytime that you accomplish that, celebrate your success. This is a key part of the process. And I don't want people to step over this piece or overlook this. Celebrating your success is an essential piece of the process. It is reaffirming to yourself that you are making progress and allowing yourself to be proud of the progress that you're making. You don't need to climb the whole mountain in one day. Just by taking that first step, that's a win. So we got to celebrate that. And as you continue to make progress and celebrate those successes over time, you will start to build that routine. Once you have sufficiently built the routine where you feel confident that this is a part of my life and I'm happy with this, I'm doing a great job, I don't need to really think about this as intensely as I did in the beginning because it's just a part of my life now. Once you get to that point, use that sense of success to branch out into your other goals. So now that you have incorporated an extra serving of fruit every day, maybe you start to do something else. Maybe you start to add in a 15-minute walk after dinner. Perfect. After you have your fruit as your dessert from your dinner, you can go outside and start your 15-minute walk. And we're just going to kind of start that process over again where we pick that one small goal. We start to make progress. Every time we make progress, we celebrate success and we continue to build that habit. Each time you go through that cycle, you come up with a new goal and you start to build that routine and you just keep going. And that is how we build these overarching health routines that become a part of our lifestyle. It is not from a complete overhaul of our entire diet, all of our routines, our entire lifestyle. It is all about those small incremental changes, those itty bitty goals that don't seem like they're all that impressive at first, but that we start to build on. And then it becomes a part of our routine and helps to elevate our lifestyle. That is what we focus on. That is the key to long term sustainable success in nutrition and your overall wellness. So, with that in mind, I have three simple things that I would like you to focus on this week that I think will really help to set you up for success and start to shift that focus from I need to have a diet to I can balance my healthy eating in a way that makes sense for my lifestyle and is sustainable for me. So, first and foremost, I really want to emphasize our protein intake. Protein is absolutely essential for our health. It helps to fuel our muscles, it helps to create our neurotransmitters, it even helps with creating some of our essential hormones, including our sex hormones, but also things that regulate our mood and our body temperature. It plays a huge role in all of these pieces. So, in a perfect world, we would like to aim for a protein intake that is about 1 times your ideal body weight in grams of protein. Okay, so as an example, what that would look like is if you are somebody who weighs 140 pounds, or 140 pounds is your ideal body weight, ideally you want to aim for about 140 grams of protein per day. And I know that sounds like a lot. So if this is something that sounds way too high and it's really unrealistic for you at this time, well, then my recommendation is at the very least, we should be aiming for at least half your body weight in grams of protein. So, what that would look like in this same example, if our ideal body weight is 140 pounds, we want to aim for somewhere between 70 to 140 grams of protein every single day. Now, if you are eating 3 meals a day, this is going to be somewhere between 25 to 45 grams of protein at each meal. That's going to be what we want to aim for. So if we're starting off by aiming for half your body weight in grams of protein, then our goal would be to over time incrementally increase that up to about 1 times your ideal body weight in protein. So that's number one. Number two is variety is key. So, we talked a little bit about the importance of those essential phytonutrients in our fruits and vegetables. Those are going to be, again, coming from fruits and vegetables, and that's where we see our rainbow of colors. Each color has a different type of phytonutrient that has amazing health benefits as a component of it, and our bodies are naturally designed to utilize that whole fruit or whole vegetable and break that down into the components that give us the instructions that we need to fuel our bodies in the proper ways. So, phytonutrients, micronutrients, tons and tons of our essential micronutrients are all going to come from our real healthy whole foods. So that is not just our healthy carbohydrates, but also our protein and our healthy dietary fats. We get a lot of essential micronutrients from those. So definitely making sure that we have those in our diet. Overall, the variety is what is going to allow us to have that broad spectrum of our healthy nutrients. Phytonutrients, micronutrients, macronutrients, we need them all. So, making sure that we have a variety of different types of foods on our plate every day is going to be absolutely essential. Now, finally, one thing that people often overlook is our hydration. So, hydrating is absolutely essential. We cannot do all of the things that our bodies need to do without proper hydration. Our cells rely on a specific water balance to keep us healthy. So, we need to hydrate, of course, with water, but beyond just water, we need our essential electrolytes. So, these are going to be things like calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium. We need these so that our bodies can properly transfer fluids to our cells and throughout the body for all the great things that we need to do during the day. So, what I always recommend for people starting off as a baseline is half your body weight in ounces of water daily. Now, this needs to increase if you're at altitude, if you're out in the sun all day, if you are exercising, or if you are drinking caffeine or alcohol. You do need to increase your water intake to adjust for that. But that's a good baseline to start off is half your body weight in ounces of water. And then when it comes to our electrolytes, in a perfect world, ideally, we really want to get these from the foods that we're eating. But if you are really behind and for some reason you cannot get those nutrients from your specific foods, you are feeling very dehydrated, out of balance, it is okay to supplement with a high quality electrolyte powder if needed. So what we want to look for in a good electrolyte supplement is going to be making sure that it has the essential electrolytes. So sodium, potassium, magnesium, those are going to be the top three that we need to see in there. And there's a few other essential electrolytes as well, but we want to see a balance. And we want to see electrolyte beverages that have zero sugar or very, very low sugar. Because we need to have actually the minerals to fuel our bodies. We don't want to overload our bodies with a bunch of sugar. Sugar can actually be dehydrating as well. So we want to be really careful of that, which is why I would caution you against drinking things like Gatorade or Powerade. Yes, they have electrolytes, but they are so full of sugar and dyes and preservatives and chemicals that realistically, you're going to be harming your body more than helping your body in that regard. So I have two types of electrolyte beverages that I really like. One is going to be Element, LMNT. Absolutely delicious. They come in little packets and you pour it into your water. Very salty, but the flavor is super good. Definitely absolutely great for an electrolyte boost, especially for athletes. The other one that I really like and I personally take very frequently is called Key Nutrients. They are an American-based brand. I believe they're based actually out of Colorado, which is really cool. But they have a really broad spectrum of essential electrolytes, and they also include some essential minerals and essential vitamins in that. So one thing I really like about the Key Nutrients brand is that they do have the B vitamins in there as well. Our B vitamins are water soluble vitamins and they are essential for our energy levels. So not only are you replenishing your electrolytes to have that good hydration balance, but you're also giving yourself a vitamin B boost, which can help with regulating those energy levels on a day-to-day. So definitely good. And then just the last thing that I really want to remind you of is altitude, sunshine, exercise, caffeine, or alcohol. These are all going to deplete you of your water and some of your essential minerals and vitamins. So please be sure to rehydrate, refuel with water, with electrolytes to keep you on track, keep you feeling good. Essentially, these are going to be just three simple focuses that we can prioritize rather than looking at overhauling everything with a specific diet. We can focus on a couple of these key factors and start to build in more balance so that we can have a well-balanced, healthy, and sustainable, nutritious diet that works for us and our needs. So that would be my best recommendation for you all. And certainly, if you are looking to learn more about any of the topics that we discussed today, I do post articles every single week on our website. That is rosenaturalwellness.com. We also provide online education services for people all across the United States. We can provide virtual webinar-based classes to all 50 states, and we have several different states within which we can do individual consultations. So if you are ever interested in learning more about healthy eating and real food nutrition, please join us for our classes, or certainly you can sign up for an individual consult as well. We offer a complimentary 15-minute discovery call on our website. You're welcome to sign up for that and make sure that we're a good fit to work together. And if so, we can move forward and get you all set for your healthy and sustainable eating. I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and have a healthy and happy day.